The snow came down in sheets that Thursday night, the kind that erased the city's edges and turned everything into a watercolor blur. Inside Maggie's diner, the fluorescent lights hummed their usual tired song, casting everything in that particular shade of yellow that made even fresh coffee look old. Rosa Mendez stood behind the counter, her apron stained with ketchup and coffee, her feet screaming inside shoes held together with duct tape and prayers. The clock above the register read 11:47 p.m., and she still had an hour before closing, an hour before she could catch the last bus home to her apartment in Ridgemont, where the heat only worked on Tuesdays, and her daughter Maya slept under 3 blankets. The diner was nearly empty, just old Mr. Chen in booth 7, nursing his decaf and reading yesterday's newspaper like it contained secrets, and Marcus, the dishwasher, clanging plates in the back with his headphones on, moving to a rhythm only he could hear. Rosa wiped down the counter for the 3rd time that hour, her hands red and cracked from the industrial soap they used. She had forgotten to buy lotion, again. There was always something more important. Maya's school supplies, the electricity bill, the $50 she sent to her mother in Honduras every month without fail. Through the window, she watched the snow accumulate on the sidewalk, on the parked cars, on the shoulders of the few desperate souls still out in this weather. The city had that muffled quality it got during heavy snow, as if someone had wrapped it in cotton. She thought about the walk from the bus stop to her apartment, 4 blocks that might as well be 4 miles in this weather. The coat she wore was thin, a donation from the church charity box 3 years ago, and it had never been warm enough. But it was what she had. The bell above the door chimed. Rosa looked up, prepared to offer her standard greeting, the one that came automatically after 7 years of working at Maggie's, but the words died in her throat. The woman who stumbled through the door looked like she'd been fighting with the wind and lost. She was tall, impossibly elegant even in distress, with silver hair that fell in waves around a face that belonged in magazines. Her dress, because it was just a dress, no coat, nothing, was black and clearly expensive, the kind of fabric that whispered when it moved. But she was shaking violently, her lips tinged blue, her arms wrapped around herself in a futile attempt at warmth. She stood in the doorway, snow melting on her shoulders, looking utterly lost. "Jesus," Rosa breathed, already moving around the counter. "Ma'am? Ma'am, are you okay?" The woman's eyes focused on Rosa with difficulty. They were gray, Rosa noticed, the color of the sky before a storm. She started, but her teeth were chattering so hard she couldn't form the words properly. "My car broke down. My phone dead. I just needed somewhere warm." Rosa was already guiding her to the nearest booth, the one by the heating vent. Sit down. Marcus," she called toward the kitchen, "hot coffee, now, and turn up the heat." The woman collapsed into the booth like a puppet with cut strings. Up close, Rosa could see she was older than she'd first appeared. Maybe 60, maybe older, but with the kind of bone structure that made age irrelevant. There were diamonds at her ears, real ones, Rosa could tell by the way they caught the light. And her dress, even soaked and clinging, probably cost more than Rosa made in 6 months. "How long were you out there?" Rosa asked, already shrugging out of her coat. "I don't... 20 minutes? 30? The woman's voice was cultured, each word precisely formed despite the shivering. "My driver... There was an accident. Not serious, but the car... It's not drivable. He went to call for help, told me to wait. But the cold... I couldn't..." Rosa draped her coat around the woman's shoulders. It was a pitiful thing, faded navy blue with a torn lining, but it was warm from Rosa's body heat. The woman looked up at her, startled. "You can't. You'll be cold." "I'm fine," Rosa lied. "I'm running around in here all night. You need it more than me." She turned to Marcus, who'd appeared with a steaming mug of coffee. "Thanks. And can you grab that emergency blanket from the supply closet?" Marcus nodded, disappearing again. Rosa sat down across from the woman, watching as she wrapped her shaking hands around the mug. Steam rose between them, creating small ghosts in the air. "I'm Rosa," she said. "Rosa Mendez. You're safe here. Take your time." The woman brought the mug to her lips, took a careful sip, and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was something softer in them, something that looked almost like tears. "Victoria," she said. "Victoria Ashworth." The name meant nothing to Rosa. She wasn't the kind of person who read society pages or fashion magazines. Her world consisted of the diner, the bus route, her apartment, Maya's school, and the grocery store where she quipped coupons and calculated every purchase down to the penny. But she could tell from Victoria's clothes, from the way she held herself even in distress, that this woman came from money. Real money. The kind Rosa had only ever seen from a distance. "Well, Victoria, you're going to be okay," Rosa said firmly. "Let me get you some food." "When did you last eat?" Victoria looked confused by the question, as if eating was something she had to consciously remember to do. "Lunch, I think. There was a fashion show and then meetings all afternoon. I was supposed to attend a charity gala tonight, but I left early. I needed air. I needed to think, and I told Thomas to just drive. We ended up in this neighborhood, and then—" She gestured vaguely, as if the rest was self-explanatory. Rosa was already standing. "I'll make you a grilled cheese and tomato soup. That's what my daughter likes when she's cold." "You have a daughter?" "Maya. She's 8, smart as a whip and twice as stubborn." Rosa felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came whenever she thought about Maya, about everything she couldn't give her, everything she wanted to give her. "She's with my neighbor tonight. Mrs. Kim watches her when I work late." Victoria nodded slowly, pulling Rosa's coat tighter around her shoulders. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Not just for the coat, for treating me like a person. Not everyone would." Rosa paused, surprised by the sadness in Victoria's voice. "Well," she said simply, "everyone deserves kindness, especially on a night like this." She headed back to the kitchen, leaving Victoria to warm up. Through the service window, she could see the older woman still sitting there, holding the coffee mug like it was precious. She fired up the griddle, buttered the bread, sliced the cheese, Kraft singles, nothing fancy, but it would be hot and filling. She ladled soup from the big pot they kept simmering all day, added a dash of black pepper the way Maya liked it. Her own coat was still draped around Victoria's shoulders. Rosa felt the cold now, the way it crept in through her thin uniform, through the skin, into the bones. But she had been cold before. She'd been cold most of her life if she was honest. Cold in winters without heat, cold in the fear of unpaid bills, cold in the knowledge that one emergency, one stroke of bad luck, could destroy everything she'd built. This was just one more kind of cold. She could handle it. When she brought the food out, Victoria looked up with an expression Rosa couldn't quite read. "You really didn't have to—" "Eat," Rosa said firmly, setting down the plate and bowl. "You need to warm up from the inside." Victoria picked up the sandwich, took a bite, and something crossed her face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. "This is perfect," she said. "Simple and perfect. I haven't had a grilled cheese in, God, decades probably. My mother used to make them when I was a girl." Rosa slid back into the booth, allowing herself a moment's rest. Her feet throbbed. "Yeah? My mom made them too, back in Honduras, before I came here. She called them quesadillas americanas. She'd never even been to America, but she'd seen them in movies." "You're from Honduras?" Victoria asked, dipping the sandwich into the soup. "Born there. Came here when I was 19. That was 17 years ago." Rosa didn't usually talk about herself, about her history. But there was something about this night, about this strange woman in her expensive dress and borrowed coat, that the words came easier. "My daughter was born here. She's American. All she knows is English in this city. Sometimes I feel like I gave up one home but never quite found another. You know?" Victoria set down her sandwich, and her gray eyes locked onto Rosa's with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable.
"Yes," she said softly. "I know exactly what you mean. I've lived in New York my entire life, in a penthouse that overlooks Central Park, and sometimes I wake up feeling like a ghost in my own home." They sat there for a moment, two women from completely different worlds, connected by something neither could quite name. Outside, the snow kept falling, building small mountains on the windowsills. Mr. Chen had left at some point. Rosa had been so focused on Victoria that she hadn't noticed. The diner was just them now, and Marcus in the back, and the hum of old appliances keeping time. "What do you do?" "For work, I mean, if you don't mind me asking." Victoria finished her soup before answering. "I'm a fashion designer. My brand, Ashworth Atelier. We do luxury ready-to-wear, haute couture, accessories. I started the company 40 years ago with money I inherited from my father. Everyone said I'd fail. Women didn't run fashion houses back then, not successful ones. But I was stubborn." She smiled, but it was tinged with something bitter, or maybe just too proud to admit defeat. Rosa's eyes widened. Even she had heard of Ashworth Atelier. Their ads were in the glossy magazines at the grocery store checkout, all towering models and impossible glamour. "You're famous," she said. "I'm successful," Victoria corrected. "There's a difference. Fame is what people see from the outside. Success is what keeps you up at night wondering if it's enough, if it ever could be enough." She looked down at Rosa's coat, still wrapped around her shoulders. "Tonight, I left a gala honoring my latest collection. 500 people applauding, champagne and crystal glasses, everyone congratulating me on another triumphant season. And all I could think was how empty it all felt. How exhausting it is to be Victoria Ashworth, to always be on, always be performing. I told my driver to just drive anywhere until I felt real again." Rosa understood that feeling more than she could say. She was always performing too. The cheerful waitress, the devoted mother, the reliable employee who never complained. Sometimes she forgot who she was underneath all those roles. "And then your car broke down," Rosa said. "And then my car broke down," Victoria agreed. "In the middle of nowhere, in a snowstorm, with a dead phone and a dress that cost $4,000 but couldn't keep me warm. Do you know what I thought when I was walking, when I couldn't feel my fingers anymore? I thought, this is what real feels like. This cold, this fear, this vulnerability. I've spent 40 years insulating myself from anything uncomfortable, anything that might make me question my choices. And here I was, freezing to death in one of my own dresses, finally feeling something true." Rosa reached across the table and took Victoria's hand. It was still cold, but warming. "You're not going to freeze to death," she said gently. "Not on my watch." Victoria laughed, a sound that was part sob. "No, because a waitress I've never met gave me the coat off her back. Literally. The only coat she has, in the middle of winter, and she gave it to a complete stranger." She squeezed Rosa's hand. "Why? Why would you do that?" Rosa shrugged. "Because you needed it, and because I know what it's like to be cold. Really cold. The kind of cold that gets into your bones and won't leave. If I can help someone not feel that, even for one night, then that's what I'm gonna do." They talked for another hour. Victoria asked about Maya, and Rosa found herself opening up in ways she usually didn't. About her daughter's love of drawing, about how she wanted to be an artist when she grew up, and about the set of colored pencils Rosa had been saving up to buy for her birthday. Victoria talked about her own daughter, Sophia, who lived in Paris and worked for a rival fashion house. They hadn't spoken in 2 years, not since a fight about the business, about legacy, about expectations. "I pushed her too hard," Victoria admitted. "I wanted her to love what I loved, to care about the company the way I did, but she needed to find her own path. And instead of supporting that, I made her feel like she was betraying me." She looked down at her empty bowl. She was right to leave. I just wish she'd let me tell her that. Marcus emerged from the kitchen, pulling off his apron. I'm heading out, Rosa. You good? Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Marcus. Get home safe. He nodded to Victoria, pulled up his hood, and disappeared into the snow.
Rosa felt tears prick her eyes. I'll try, she said softly. She climbed out into the cold and watched as the town car pulled away, its taillights disappearing into the snow. Then she trudged up the 4 flights of stairs to her apartment, where Mrs. Kim dozed on the couch and Maya slept in the bedroom they shared, her small body curled under the blankets. Rosa paid Mrs. Kim, thanked her, and locked the door behind her. She stood in the tiny kitchen, still wearing her coat, looking at Victoria's business card. Tomorrow she'd go back to the diner, back to her regular life. This night would become a story she'd tell Maya, about the elegant lady who stumbled into the diner, about an unlikely connection made during a snowstorm. But holding that card, Rosa felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not hope, exactly, but possibility. The sense that maybe the world was bigger than she'd let herself believe, that kindness could ripple outward in ways she couldn't predict. She tucked the card into her wallet behind Maya's school picture and went to bed. Outside, the snow kept falling, covering the city's scars, making everything clean and new, at least for one night. Rosa woke to Maya's small hand shaking her shoulder. Mama, it's snowing really bad. Am I still going to school? Rosa cracked open her eyes. Gray dawn light filtered through the thin curtains, and she could hear the wind howling outside. She reached for her phone on the milk crate that served as her nightstand. 6:15 a.m. She'd had less than 4 hours of sleep, and her body felt like it had been wrung out and left to dry. Let me check, baby, she murmured, pulling Maya into bed with her. The girl was warm and smelled like the lavender soap Rosa bought from the dollar store. She wrapped her arms around her daughter, these few moments of peace before the day demanded everything from her. She made breakfast, instant oatmeal with a drizzle of honey, the last of the bananas sliced on top. She made coffee for herself, the cheap instant kind that tasted like cardboard but had caffeine, which was all that mattered. While Maya ate, Rosa took inventory of their refrigerator. Half a carton of milk, some eggs, a wilting head of lettuce, condiments. They needed to go grocery shopping, but payday wasn't until Friday, 3 days away. They'd make it work. They always did. She helped Maya get dressed in layers. Thermal underwear, jeans, 2 sweaters, the puffy coat from the church clothing drive. Her daughter's boots were getting tight, Rosa noticed. She'd need new ones soon. Add it to the list of things they needed, things they'd get, eventually, somehow. The walk to the bus stop was brutal. The snow from last night had been plowed into massive banks on the sides of the street, and the sidewalks were treacherous with ice. Rosa held Maya's hand tightly, terrified of her slipping. The wind cut through Rosa's coat, her coat, the one she'd given to Victoria Ashworth last night, the one that had come back to her but somehow felt thinner now, as if the act of giving it away had permanently diminished its warmth. The bus was crowded with essential workers like herself, nurses heading to hospitals, retail employees, other restaurant staff. Rosa recognized some faces, nodded to others. They were all in this together, the army of people who kept the city running while others stayed home in their warm apartments. Maya pressed against her side, and Rosa held her close, trying to shield her from the press of bodies. At the diner, Maggie was already there, firing up the griddle. She was a woman in her 60s, all steel and cigarette smoke, but with a heart softer than she'd ever admit. She took one look at Maya and nodded. Back boot's all yours, kiddo. There's orange juice in the fridge. Help yourself. Thank you, Miss Maggie, Maya said politely, already shrugging off her coat. Rosa tied on her apron, the familiar weight of it settling on her shoulders like a harness. She'd worn this apron so many times it had molded to her body, the strings permanently creased from being tied and untied thousands of times. She poured herself more coffee, the good stuff from the diner's machine, and started her opening routine. Fill the sugar dispensers, check the salt and pepper shakers, wipe down the menus, brew fresh coffee, set up the pie case, start the soup, Today would be chicken noodle, good for a snow day. Every movement was automatic, muscle memory from 7 years of repetition. She could do this job in her sleep. Sometimes, she felt like she did. The morning regulars trickled in despite the weather. Mr. Chan, of course, who apparently came to the diner every single day regardless of conditions. Mrs. Patterson, who ordered egg whites and whole wheat toast and complained about everything. Young Tommy Reeves, who worked night security at the warehouse district and stopped in for breakfast before heading home. Rosa knew all their orders, knew how they took their coffee, knew which ones would tip well and which would leave nothing but loose change. She moved through her shift on autopilot, her body doing the work while her mind drifted. She thought about Victoria Ashworth, wondered if the woman had made it home safe, if she'd think about last night at all, or if it had already faded into the background of her glamorous life. Rosa had Googled the name that morning while Maya was getting dressed, had seen the photos of Victoria at fashion shows, at galas, at the opening of her flagship store on Fifth Avenue. She looked different in those pictures, harder, more polished, untouchable, not like the vulnerable woman who'd stumbled into the diner. "Mama," Maya called from the back booth. "Can I have pancakes?" Rosa checked the time, almost noon, and they'd been slow because of the weather. "Sure, baby, let me make them for you." She made Maya's pancakes the way her daughter liked them, slightly burned on the edges, drowned in syrup, with a smiley face made of chocolate chips. She delivered them with a flourish, and Maya's face lit up. "You're the best mama in the whole world," Maya declared, already cutting into the stack. Rosa kissed the top of her head. "And you're the best daughter. How's the drawing coming?" Maya showed her the sketch she'd been working on, a surprisingly detailed portrait of Mr. Chen sitting in his usual booth. The old man's features were captured with a precision that surprised Rosa. Her daughter had talent, real talent, not just the kind parents imagined because they loved their children. Maya saw the world in lines and shapes, in light and shadow. She noticed things. "That's beautiful, mija," Rosa said softly. "You should show him." Maya blushed but nodded. Later, when Mr. Chen got up to pay, Maya shyly presented the drawing. The old man's eyes widened, and he said something in Cantonese that Rosa didn't understand, but that sounded kind. He left a $5 tip, more than he'd ever left before, and carefully folded the drawing into his pocket. "See," Rosa told Maya, "your art makes people happy." But even as she said it, Rosa felt the familiar ache of things she couldn't provide. Maya needed real art lessons, not just the free tutorials on YouTube they watched on Rosa's cracked phone screen. She needed good supplies, quality paper, professional pencils, maybe someday an easel. She needed opportunities, exposure, a chance to develop her gifts, and Rosa couldn't give her any of that. The lunch rush came and went. Rosa's feet hurt, her back hurt, her hands were raw from washing dishes when Marcus called in sick. The soup pot needed constant attention, and the ancient espresso machine broke twice, requiring her to fish coffee grounds out of the mechanism with a spoon. This was her life. Small emergencies, small solutions, always scrambling, always making do. Around 3, during the lull before dinner service, Rosa finally sat down in the booth with Maya. Her daughter had moved on to math homework, her face scrunched in concentration as she worked through long division problems. "Need help?" Rosa asked. Maya shook her head. "I got it. Mrs. Henderson showed us a trick." Rosa watched her work, marveling at how much her daughter had grown. 8 years old. Where had the time gone? She remembered Maya as a baby, so tiny Rosa was terrified to hold her, convinced she'd break. Remembered her as a toddler, taking those first wobbling steps in their old apartment, the one-room place they'd lived in before this marginally better 2-room. Remembered her first day of kindergarten, when Maya had cried and clung to Rosa's legs, and Rosa had cried too, in the bathroom of the diner after dropping her off. Now, Maya was becoming her own person, stubborn, creative, funny, kind. She had Rosa's eyes, but her father's chin. Not that Rosa thought about him anymore. He'd disappeared before Maya was born, couldn't handle the responsibility of fatherhood. His loss. Rosa had done this alone, and she'd done it well. Maya was loved, fed, housed, educated. She was happy. That was what mattered. But God, Rosa was tired. Tired of working 6 days a week. Tired of counting pennies, tired of saying no to things Maya wanted, new clothes, books, that expensive art set at the store. Tired of the constant anxiety that one crisis would destroy them, a broken appliance, a medical emergency, losing this job. She had no safety net, no savings to speak of, no family nearby except her mother in Honduras, who Rosa supported more than the other way around. Sometimes Rosa let herself imagine a different life, one where she'd finished college instead of dropping out when she got pregnant, where she'd become a teacher like she'd planned, with a steady salary and benefits, where Maya could have her own room, where they could go on vacation, where Rosa didn't have to patch her work shoes with duct tape. But those thoughts were dangerous. They made her current reality harder to bear. "Mama?" Maya looked up from her homework. "Are you sad?" Rosa forced a smile. "No, baby. Just tired. Long day." "We could play the gratitude game," Maya suggested. It was something they did sometimes, a game Rosa had invented to help them both remember the good things when times were hard. "Okay," Rosa agreed. "You first." Maya thought for a moment. "I'm grateful for snow days, and for pancakes with chocolate chips, and for you, Mama." Rosa felt her throat tighten. "I'm grateful for you, mija. Always you. And for this job, even when it's hard. And for Mrs. Kim, who helps us out. And Mr. Chen liking my drawing." "And for that," Rosa agreed. The bell above the door chimed, and a blast of cold air swept through the diner. Rosa stood automatically, ready to greet the new customer, ready to put on her smile and her service voice. But she froze when she saw who it was. A man in an expensive wool coat, carrying a large box wrapped in silver paper and tied with a white ribbon. He looked around the diner with an expression that was hard to read. Not quite disgust, but definitely discomfort, like he'd wandered into a foreign country and wasn't sure of the customs. "Can I help you?" Rosa asked, approaching him. "I'm looking for Rosa Mendez," he said. His voice was clipped, professional. "That's me." Rosa's heart started pounding. This couldn't be good news. Men in expensive coats delivering packages in person never brought good news to people like her. The man smiled thinly. "I'm James Whitmore, Miss Ashworth's personal assistant. She asked me to deliver this to you personally." He held out the box. "What is it?" Rosa asked. "I suggest you open it and see. And Miss Ashworth wanted me to tell you to expect more deliveries over the next few days. She's been quite insistent about this project." Rosa took the box. It was heavier than she expected, substantial. "I don't understand." James's expression softened slightly. "Ms. Ashworth doesn't forget people who show her kindness. Good day, Ms. Mendez." He turned and left before Rosa could ask any more questions. Rosa stood there holding the box, aware of Maggie watching from behind the counter and Maya staring with wide eyes from the booth. Slowly, she set the box down on the nearest table and untied the ribbon. The paper fell away to reveal a white box with elegant lettering, "Ashworth Atelier." "Mama, what is it?" Maya asked, sliding out of the booth to stand beside her. "I don't know, baby." Rosa lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a coat. But not just any coat. A work of art in fabric form. It was wool, the softest wool Rosa had ever touched, in a deep charcoal gray that seemed to shift colors in the light. It had a wide collar, silver buttons, and when Rosa lifted it out, she could feel the weight of quality, of something made to last. There was a note pinned to the collar in elegant handwriting. "Rosa, thank you for your warmth when I needed it most. This coat is from our winter collection. It's designed to withstand the coldest weather New York can throw at you. Please accept it with my gratitude. With warmth, Victoria." "Oh my God," Rosa breathed. She checked the tag. Sure enough, Ashworth Atelier. Retail price $2,400. $2,400 for a coat. More than she made in 2 months. "It's so pretty," Maya said, reaching out to touch it. "Try it on, Mama." Rosa's hands were shaking as she slipped off her old coat and put on the new one. It fit perfectly, settling on her shoulders like it had been made for her body specifically. It was warm, not just warm, but enveloping, protective, like being wrapped in a cloud. She could feel the difference in the fabric, the insulation, the construction. This coat would last for years. This coat would actually keep her warm. She looked at herself in the reflection of the diner's window. For a moment, she didn't recognize herself. In this coat, she looked like someone who mattered, someone who deserved beautiful things. "Mama, you look like a princess," Maya said. Rosa laughed, but it came out shaky. She felt overwhelmed by the generosity, by the kindness, by the sheer impracticality of owning something this expensive. She should return it. She should. But the thought of going back to her old coat, of being cold again, was unbearable. "I need to call her. I need to thank her." She pulled out Victoria's business card, which she'd been carrying in her apron pocket like a talisman. She dialed the number with trembling fingers. A receptionist answered. "Ashworth Atelier, how may I direct your call?" I need to speak to Victoria Ashworth. My name is Rosa Mendez. She sent me something, and I need to thank her." There was a pause. "One moment, please." Rosa waited, while some classical music played. This was crazy. This was insane. People like Victoria Ashworth didn't just give people like Rosa expensive coats. There had to be some mistake. But then Victoria's voice came through the line, warm and amused. "Rosa, did you get my little thank you?" "Little?" Rosa laughed despite herself. "Victoria, this coat costs more than my car, if I had a car." "Do you like it?" "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever owned. Honestly. But I can't accept this. It's too much." "Nonsense," Victoria said firmly. "It's not nearly enough. You gave me your coat when I needed it most. Let me do the same for you. Please, Rosa, it would make me happy to know you're warm." Rosa felt tears welling up. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." "You're welcome. And Rosa, James mentioned more deliveries. I meant what I said. I'm sending you a proper thank you. Let me do this." Rosa wanted to protest, wanted to say that one coat was already too generous, but something in Victoria's voice stopped her. There was almost a pleading quality to it, as if Victoria needed to do this, needed to give this gift. And Rosa understood that feeling, the desire to help, to give even when you could barely afford it yourself. Victoria had her own version of that impulse, just with different resources. "Okay," Rosa said softly. "Okay, thank you." They talked for a few more minutes, Victoria asking about Maya, Rosa asking if Victoria had spoken to her daughter yet. She hadn't, but she was thinking about it, she said. Rosa encouraged her gently, told her that life was too short to let pride keep you from the people you loved. When they hung up, Rosa felt something shift inside her. Not just gratitude, but connection. She had a friend. A strange, unlikely, completely improbable friend, but a friend nonetheless. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Rosa worked in her new coat, unwilling to take it off, and even Maggie remarked on it. "That's some coat," her boss said, raising an eyebrow. "Win the lottery?" "Something like that," Rosa replied, smiling. When they finally closed up and headed home, Maya chattered excitedly about the coat, about the mysterious fancy lady who'd sent it, about how maybe they'd get more presents. Rosa let her daughter dream, but she tempered her own expectations. The coat was a one-time thing, a beautiful gesture. She wouldn't count on anything more. But 3 days later, another delivery came to the diner. Then another. Then another. It started with clothes. Not just any clothes, but pieces from Ashworth Atelier's current collection. Blouses in silk and cashmere, trousers that fit like they'd been tailored specifically for Rosa's body, dresses for both work and special occasions, although Rosa couldn't imagine where she'd wear them, sweaters that felt like being hugged, scarves, gloves, boots that were both stylish and practical. Then came clothes for Maya, children's wear from a line Rosa didn't even know Ashworth made. Beautiful dresses, comfortable play clothes, a winter coat that made Maya squeal with delight. The coat was dark purple with silver buttons, and Maya wore it everywhere, even inside, until Rosa made her take it off for bed. With each delivery came a note from Victoria. Sometimes they were short, "Thought this would suit you," or "For Maya, with love." Sometimes they were longer, Victoria sharing thoughts about her day, asking questions about Rosa's life, creating an ongoing conversation through these notes, even though they also talked on the phone now, brief calls during Rosa's breaks or after Maya went to bed. The other waitresses at the diner noticed. Of course, they noticed. Tina, who'd worked there for 15 years and had 3 kids of her own, cornered Rosa in the kitchen one afternoon. "So, who's your sugar mama?" she asked, not unkindly but with definite curiosity. Rosa laughed. "It's not like that. I helped someone and they're returning the favor, that's all." "Must have been some help," Tina said, eyeing Rosa's new boots, sleek black leather that somehow managed to be both elegant and comfortable for standing all day. "Those are Ashworth, aren't they? My daughter would kill for those." Rosa felt a flash of guilt. Here she was receiving gifts that cost more than most people made in a month, while her co-workers struggled with the same problems she'd always struggled with. It felt wrong somehow, like she'd won a lottery she hadn't bought a ticket for. "I didn't ask for any of this," Rosa said quietly. "I just gave her my coat because she was freezing. That's all I did." Tina softened. "Hey, I'm not judging. Good for you, girl. Lord knows you deserve something good to happen. Just be careful, okay? Rich people, they're not like us. They don't think like us." Rosa nodded, but she thought Tina was wrong about Victoria, or at least she hoped she was wrong. The deliveries continued. After clothes came other things, a new tablet for Maya with a stylus pen and drawing apps already installed, a set of professional art supplies, the kind Maya had stared at longingly in store windows, books, lots of books, beautiful editions of classics and new releases, a coffee maker for their apartment, the kind that made actual good coffee, small kitchen appliances that made cooking easier, warm blankets for their beds. Rosa's apartment began to transform. It was still small, still in a building with problems, but it felt different now, warmer, more like a home and less like a temporary stopping place. Maya's corner, where she slept and did her homework, became a little haven with her new art supplies organized on a bookshelf Victoria had sent. But with each gift, Rosa felt the weight of obligation growing. What did Victoria want from her? Nobody gives this much without expecting something in return. She tried to bring it up during one of their phone calls. "Victoria, you have to stop sending things. This is too much. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't repay kindness, Rosa," Victoria said firmly. "You pass it forward. And besides, do you know what you've given me? Perspective, humanity, a reminder that there's more to life than fashion shows and profit margins. You've given me a friend. That's worth more than any amount of money." "But no buts. Let me do this, please. It makes me happy." And so Rosa stopped protesting, though the discomfort never quite left her. She wore her new clothes to work, to parent-teacher conferences, to the grocery store. People looked at her differently now. They treated her with more respect, more consideration. It was amazing and depressing how much a person's worth seemed tied to their appearance, to the signals of wealth and taste. Mrs. Kim, her neighbor, noticed the changes too. "You get new job?" she asked one evening when Rosa picked up Maya. "No, same job. Just, I made a friend who's been very generous." Mrs. Kim nodded sagely. "Good friend is treasure, more valuable than gold. You take care of good friend, and good friend take care of you." It was simple wisdom, but it struck Rosa deeply. She'd been so focused on the material gifts that she'd almost lost sight of the real gift, the friendship itself. Victoria and Rosa came from completely different worlds, but they understood each other in ways that transcended class and circumstances. Victoria saw Rosa as a person, not just a waitress, and Rosa saw Victoria as a person, not just a wealthy designer. They talked about real things, fears, hopes, regrets. Victoria confided her worries about her company, about aging in an industry obsessed with youth, about the loneliness of success. Rosa shared her anxieties about Maya's future, about money, about whether she was doing enough as a mother. They laughed together, cried together over the phone, built something genuine. One Saturday, Rosa's day off, Victoria called with an unusual request. "What are you doing today?" "Nothing special. Maya has a play date with a school friend. I was going to clean the apartment, maybe go to the laundromat." "Cancel it. All of it. I'm sending a car for you. There's something I want to show you." Rosa's heart skipped. "What? Where?" "It's a surprise. Trust me?" Rosa found herself smiling. "Okay, what should I wear?" "Whatever makes you feel comfortable. This isn't about impressing anyone." The car arrived at 11. Thomas again, with his kind face and professional manner. He drove Rosa into Manhattan, through neighborhoods that became progressively more expensive until they pulled up in front of a building Rosa recognized from magazines, the Ashworth Atelier flagship store on Fifth Avenue. "Miss Ashworth is waiting for you on the 5th floor," Thomas said, opening her door. "Take the private elevator at the back." Rosa entered the store, feeling completely out of place, despite her Ashworth coat and boots. The space was minimalist and elegant, all white marble and strategic lighting. Beautiful clothes hung on chrome racks, each piece displayed like art. A saleswoman approached, and Rosa was about to explain she was just visiting when the woman smiled warmly. "Ms. Mendez, please follow me." She was led to a private elevator that opened onto a completely different world. The 5th floor was clearly executive space, plush carpeting, artwork on the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of Central Park. And there was Victoria, standing in what appeared to be her private office, wearing black trousers and a cream-colored sweater, her silver hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked younger than she had that night at the diner, more relaxed. "Rosa!" She crossed the room and embraced her, and Rosa found herself hugging back, this strange friend who'd fallen into her life like snow. "Your office is incredible," Rosa said, looking around at the space, elegant but not cold, with photographs on the walls, sketches pinned to boards, fabric samples draped over furniture. "Thank you, but that's not what I wanted to show you. Come." Victoria led her down a hallway to another room, this one filled with clothing racks, a three-way mirror, a tailor's platform. And on the racks were clothes, dozens of pieces, all in Rosa's size. "I've been having my team put together a complete wardrobe for you," Victoria explained. "Everything you might need, work clothes, casual clothes, formal wear. I want you to try things on, see what speaks to you, what makes you feel like yourself, and then we'll tailor everything to fit perfectly." Rosa felt her eyes welling up. "Victoria, this is... I can't." "Yes, you can. Rosa, do you know what it's been like for me these past few weeks, creating this for you? It's reminded me why I got into fashion in the first place. Not to make money or be famous, but to help people feel beautiful, feel confident, feel like their best selves. You've given me that back. Please, let me do this." So, Rosa tried on clothes. For hours, she stood in front of mirrors wearing things she never would have chosen for herself. Bold colors, interesting cuts, pieces that made her look sophisticated and powerful and beautiful. Victoria watched with an expert eye, making notes, pinning hems, adjusting shoulders. "You have a wonderful figure," she said, circling Rosa in a wine-colored dress. "Strong shoulders, beautiful waist. This dress was made for a body like yours." Rosa looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She'd spent so many years seeing herself as just functional, a body that could stand for long shifts, that could lift heavy trays, that took up space apologetically. But in this dress, with Victoria's eyes on her, she saw something different. She saw someone worthy of beauty. They broke for lunch. Food Victoria had catered from some fancy place. Little sandwiches and salads that were almost too pretty to eat.
They sat in Victoria's office, eating and talking, and Rosa felt a kind of peace she rarely experienced. "I've been thinking about Sophia," Victoria said quietly, picking at her salad, "about what you said, that life's too short to let pride keep you from people you love. Have you reached out to her?" "I'm going to. I'm scared, though. What if she doesn't want to hear from me? What if I've hurt her too badly?" Rosa reached across and took Victoria's hand. "You won't know unless you try. And even if she's angry, even if she needs time, at least you'll have tried. At least she'll know you care." Victoria squeezed her hand. "When did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I just know what it's like to have limited time with people you love. My mom is getting older, and I can't afford to visit her in Honduras. Every day I don't see her is a day I'll never get back. If you have the chance to fix things with your daughter, you should take it." They sat in silence for a moment, both thinking about distance and time and the relationships that mattered. Later, after Rosa had been fitted for what felt like an entire store's worth of clothes, after Victoria had insisted on including shoes and bags and accessories, they stood together by the windows looking out at Central Park. "I want to do something else for you," Victoria said, "something beyond clothes." Rosa turned to her. "Victoria, you've already done so much. I want to set up an education fund for Maya, for art school when she's older. I've seen her drawings, the ones you showed me on your phone. She has real talent, Rosa. She deserves the chance to develop it." Rosa felt her knees go weak. "I can't accept that. That's too much. That's her whole future." "Exactly. It's her future, and you're an incredible mother, Rosa, but you can't do everything alone. Let me help, please." Rosa was crying now, couldn't help it. "Why? Why are you doing all this for us?" Victoria's eyes were wet too. "Because that night, when you gave me your coat, you saw me. Not Victoria Ashworth, the fashion designer, not the brand, not the money, just me. A cold, scared woman who needed help. And you helped me without hesitation, even though you had less than I did. That kind of goodness is rare, Rosa, and it deserves to be rewarded."
They held each other while Rosa cried, tears of gratitude, of overwhelm, of hope for a future she'd never let herself imagine for Maya. Her daughter wouldn't have to struggle the way Rosa had struggled. She'd have opportunities, choices, a chance to become whoever she wanted to be. When Rosa finally pulled away, wiping her eyes, Victoria smiled at her. "Besides," she said lightly, "I'm a selfish old woman. I need my friend to be happy. It makes my life better." Rosa laughed through her tears. "You're not old, and you're definitely not selfish." "Well, thank you for that." Thomas drove Rosa home as the sun was setting, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. The clothes would be delivered over the next week, Victoria had said, and the education fund was being set up through Victoria's family foundation. Maya's future was secure. They were secure. When Rosa got home, Maya was already there, Mrs. Kim having picked her up from her playdate. Her daughter launched into an excited story about her day, about what she and her friend Emma had played, about the movie they'd watched. Rosa held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the solid warmth of her small body. "Mama, you okay?" Maya asked, pulling back to look at her. "I'm more than okay, baby. I'm happy. I'm so happy." That night, after Maya was asleep, Rosa stood in their small apartment, looking at their life. It wasn't much, still small, still shabby in places, but it was filled with warmth now, with possibility. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from Honduras to New York, from a scared 19-year-old to a woman who'd somehow caught the attention of one of the fashion world's biggest names. She thought about that snowy night, about the impulse to help a stranger. She hadn't done it expecting anything in return. She'd done it because it was right, because it was who she was.
And somehow, impossibly, that simple act of kindness had changed everything. Rosa pulled on her beautiful new coat, the first one Victoria had sent, and stepped out onto the fire escape. The city stretched out before her, millions of lights against the darkness. Somewhere out there was Victoria, probably still in her office working on her next collection. Somewhere out there were all the people Rosa served at the diner, living their own complex lives. Somewhere out there was Maya's future, bright and full of promise now. Rosa breathed in the cold night air and let herself feel it. The hope, the gratitude, the strange miracle of connection. She'd spent so long just surviving, just getting through each day. But maybe, just maybe, she could start living, too. The snow began to fall again, gentle flakes drifting down through the glow of streetlights. Rosa watched it accumulate on the fire escape railing, each snowflake unique and temporary and beautiful. Like moments, she thought. Like kindness. Like friendship. She stayed there until the cold began to seep through even her expensive coat, then went back inside to the warmth of her home, her daughter, her life. Tomorrow she'd wake up early, go to the diner, serve coffee and eggs and pie. She'd be tired and her feet would hurt, and she'd worry about money. But she'd do it wearing clothes that made her feel strong. She'd do it knowing Maya had a future. She'd do it knowing that somewhere in this vast city was a friend who saw her, really saw her, and thought she mattered. And that made all the difference. What begins as a simple act of compassion on a freezing winter night evolves into a profound exploration of friendship, class, and the complicated nature of generosity. This is the story of Rosa and Victoria, two women from vastly different worlds whose unlikely connection transforms both their lives in ways neither could have anticipated. Rosa is a single mother working as a waitress at Maggie's diner, living paycheck to paycheck in a modest apartment with her 8-year-old daughter, Maya. Her life is a careful balance of survival, juggling shifts, counting every dollar, and wearing the same worn clothes year after year. On a bitterly cold Thursday night, she encounters a woman shivering outside the diner, inadequately dressed for the brutal weather. Without hesitation, Rosa gives the stranger her own coat, the warmest thing she owns, and disappears into the night before accepting any gratitude. That freezing woman turns out to be Victoria Chen, a highly successful fashion designer and CEO. Deeply moved by Rosa's selfless gesture, Victoria becomes determined to repay this extraordinary kindness. What starts as a simple thank you gift, a replacement coat, quickly evolves into something much more substantial. Victoria sends Rosa an entire designer wardrobe, sets up an education fund for Maya, and provides art supplies for the creative young girl. For Rosa, these gifts feel like a miracle. She's warmer than she's been in years. Maya has opportunities Rosa never dreamed possible. The two women begin meeting regularly, forming a genuine friendship that transcends their economic differences. Victoria, isolated by her success and estranged from her own daughter, finds in Rosa something she's been missing: authentic human connection. Rosa discovers that the wealthy woman she helped is actually lonely, struggling with her own painful family estrangement. But Rosa soon learns that accepting generosity comes with unexpected costs. The transformation in her appearance creates immediate tension at the diner. Her co-worker Tina, who has worked there for 15 years and still struggles to afford basic necessities like her daughter's braces, begins treating Rosa with cold hostility. The sight of Rosa arriving each day in expensive designer clothing while Tina wears the same 3 worn shirts becomes unbearable for her. "I've been working here 15 years and I'm still living paycheck to paycheck," Tina tells Rosa during a painful confrontation. "And then you show up every day in clothes that cost more than my rent. And I'm supposed to, what, be happy for you?" The resentment spreads. Other co-workers avoid Rosa.
Regular customers treat her differently, some with more respect, as if nice clothes make her more worthy, others with suspicion, as if she's betrayed some unspoken working-class solidarity. Even Kyle, a newer server, gets caught up in the tension, leading to public conflicts that embarrass Rosa in front of customers. The complications extend beyond the workplace. At Maya's school, the 8-year-old becomes a target of jealousy and bullying. Her best friend Emma accuses her of being a show-off because of her new tablet and clothes. Other children tease Maya, calling her family fake rich because they live in a modest apartment while she has expensive possessions. Maya comes home sobbing, saying she hates her new things and just wants to be normal again. Even Rosa's reliable childcare arrangement becomes jeopardized. Mrs. Kim, the elderly neighbor who has watched Maya for years, is pressured by her own daughter to demand more money. After all, if Rosa can afford designer clothes, surely she can afford to pay more for babysitting. The situation reaches a crisis point when a drunk customer at the diner publicly mocks Rosa's clothing, insinuating she must have stolen it. Rosa, worn down by weeks of judgment and hostility, snaps back, telling the customer to leave if she's unhappy. Her boss Maggie has to intervene, later confronting Rosa about how she's changed, how her distraction and the surrounding drama are affecting the business. "Something's different," she tells her. "This place runs on consistency, on everyone pulling together, and right now it doesn't feel like we're all on the same team." Rosa feels crushed. The gifts that were meant to improve her life seem to be destroying it instead. She's isolated at work, her daughter is being bullied at school, and she doesn't feel she belongs anywhere. Too poor for Victoria's world, too conspicuous in her own.
Desperation, she calls Victoria and suggests returning everything, going back to how things were before. Harder, but simpler, Victoria acknowledges. But Rosa, you can't make yourself small to make other people comfortable. That's not the answer. Victoria shares her own story, how her success cost her friendships, led to a failed marriage, and created estrangement from her daughter Sophia. She isolated herself, built walls, and is still paying the price for those choices. She doesn't want Rosa to make the same mistakes. The turning point comes when Victoria calls with transformative news. She's finally reconnected with her daughter Sophia, inspired by Rosa's earlier encouragement not to waste time. They talked for 3 hours, and Sophia is coming to visit. Rosa's friendship and advice gave Victoria the courage to reach out, to risk rejection in pursuit of healing. This reminds Rosa that the real gift was never the clothes or money, it was the friendship itself. Both women were struggling in their own ways, and their connection has been genuinely healing for both of them. Rosa begins to shift her approach. She invites Tina over for an honest conversation, apologizing not for accepting help, but for not being more sensitive to how it affected others. Tina admits her own jealousy and anger. Together, they begin rebuilding their friendship. Rosa connects Tina with a foundation through Victoria's network that helps working families with medical expenses for her daughter's braces. This becomes Rosa's new purpose, using her position as a bridge between worlds to help others. She arranges resources for people at the diner, in her building, and at Maya's school. At the school, she helps establish a free art program where Maya can share her newfound skills with other students. Victoria donates supplies, and Maya teaches her classmates. Eventually, even Emma apologizes and joins the program. At the diner, Rosa proves through consistent, caring work that she hasn't changed where it truly matters. The clothes are just clothes. They don't define her character or her commitment to doing her job well. Victoria proposes something new, a foundation program providing wardrobes and professional development for working women, with Rosa helping to design it. It's not charity, it's partnership. Rosa would be paid for her expertise, her insight into both worlds. This time, Rosa accepts without shame because she understands she has something valuable to contribute. That spring, Maya's artwork is selected for a citywide student exhibition. Rosa stands in the gallery, surrounded by her community, Victoria, Tina, now a true friend, and Mrs. Kim. She wears one of Victoria's beautiful designs, but also her old duct-tape sneakers at Maya's request. "They're part of your story, Mama," her daughter had said. The dress and the sneakers, that perfect metaphor for Rosa's life now. She holds both realities gracefully, neither denying her struggles nor hiding her blessings. Rosa remains a waitress at Maggie's diner. She still takes the bus and sometimes worries about money. But she's more than that, a friend, a bridge builder, a woman who learned that accepting help doesn't diminish strength, but expands it. She discovered that you don't have to choose between humility and claiming your worth. You can be both, grateful for where you've been, excited about where you're going, and fully present in who you are right now. If this story of unexpected friendship and transformative kindness touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss these inspiring narratives. We share meaningful stories like this every week, tales about ordinary people, extraordinary moments, and the power of human connection.